What happened to the plans we made? We're just getting older. If you could have spoke to your former self, what would you have told her? You see my face and stuff. What's up, everyone? Jack here. Welcome back to another episode of Survivorflux. And today's video is probably going to be a little shorter. This episode was pretty cut and dry, and since we're going into a tribe swap next week, but they haven't shown us exactly what the swap tribes are going to be, the game's going to completely change after this week, and this vote out was pretty obvious in my opinion, but we will go over the beats of the episode. But first, I want to address the whole Sandra controversy. I don't even want to call it a controversy, but I don't know if you guys know, over the last week, pretty much the takeaway from this episode for a lot of fans was, one, that was great Edge of Extinction material. People are starting to warm up to the idea. It took up 10 minutes of the episode, but in my opinion, that was completely fine with me. The Tyson vote seemed really, really obvious. So give us something good. Give us something that'll tug on our heartstrings. The only other thing that people seem to talk about from this episode over and over again online was how bad of the player Sandra is, that she sits out of every challenge, how undeserving she is, and how cocky she is. And hey, everyone is entitled to their own opinion, okay? But I want to point out a couple of things. Sandra did win twice. I'm of the opinion that even if the player who wins is not the player I wanted to win, they did what they needed to do to win that season. A good example is season 19, Samoa. I was completely for Russell, and Natalie White wound up winning. At that point, I had to kind of reconcile with that and realize that Russell did, with Natalie, it's more that Russell did something wrong and Mick didn't do anything than Natalie doing something than Natalie doing something right. Now, Sandra's first season, I wanted her to win. She was great TV, but she was up against someone, admittedly, that was not that great, and Lil. And Lil being a part of the Outcast twist that wasn't well received, Lil wasn't going to win that vote, no matter who she was up against. Just real quick, not to get off on a tangent, but there have been 6 seasons now that have had returning players who have been voted off and then able to get back on the island. One with the Outcast twist, and this season that we're talking about, 3 Redemption Islands, and then 2 Edge of Extinctions. I do find it interesting that of those 6, the Outcast twist was the only one that was based on a social aspect, meaning that the other 5, Redemption Island, Edge of Extinction, you have to compete to get back in the game. With the Outcast twist, they actually did vote for each other to get back into the game, and they had to win a competition. But it was so hated, but I realized that I actually do kind of like that social aspect. Sandra's second season, season 20, Heroes vs. Villains, she won. A lot of people wanted Russell to win. I would have preferred Russell over Sandra, but I was actually rooting for Parvati. But again, Sandra won that season. And then I understand people being confused about the fact that Sandra was allowed to sit out in quote-unquote back-to-back challenges, because Jeff always says the line, you can't sit someone out in back-to-back challenges. Who's it going to be? But they've cleared up the rules since then. It's essentially back-to-back challenges between tribals, which makes perfect sense to me. Now that they're not doing pure reward challenges, that you could sit someone out technically back to back as long as tribal council has happened in between those 2 challenges. That's fine with me. And if it's not fine with you, that's okay. But things got so bad online that Sandra even posted on one of the Facebook groups that I follow, one of the Survivor Facebook groups that has thousands of people in it. Here's what she posted, and she left the group, and the hate got so bad that, not big news, not EW, Variety, that kind of thing, but smaller reality news outlets were even posting about this. Sandra's not my favorite player whatsoever, but to just sit there and hate on her and act like sitting out of challenges is the entire game of Survivor is crazy to me. Sandra, even though she's sassy, does have a good social game, obviously. She's twice been able to figure out how to get to the end. Her third time around, she didn't get to the end because they saw her as such a big threat. And to act like everything in Survivor is chalked up to whether you can perform in immunity challenges with your tribe, that's just crazy to me. And then in the challenges that she sat out, it makes perfect sense for her tribe. Why would they sit someone out other than Sandra? And again, you can look down on her for not being that physical player if that's what you see in your Survivor winner. And obviously you want a winner to have all 3 aspects: outwit, outplay, and outlast. But to me, to just sit at your keyboard and hate on someone who's made a life for her family from playing Survivor, who's the only person to this day, at least televised, who has won twice. The only person that we know has won twice so far. It's just, the hate is just completely unnecessary. To watch this really well put together episode, again, like I said, I thought the vote was really obvious, but I thought it was also a really well edited episode. It gave us a lot to process, and for that to be your takeaway, Sandra sits out of 2 challenges, and Sandra's a horrible player, and she doesn't deserve to be there, blah, 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 blah. It's just pitiful to me that people look at things that way. But again, that's just my opinion, and everyone's entitled to their own opinion. But to spread hate online, especially when it's a show that you love so much, is just wrong, in my opinion. But anyway, I just had to get that out of the way. Let's hit a few beats from this last episode. We open to Adam realizing he's on the bottom of his tribe. I've probably said it before, but my 2 favorite segments of the entire show, any episode, any given episode, is going to be when they get back from a crazy tribal or a blindside tribal, a tribal where someone feels betrayed. I love seeing the fallout at the beginning of episodes like that, and then I love the build up to tribal. And so this was a really great fallout episode. And I liked how the people in his alliance, they technically betrayed him, and he did betray them by talking to Ethan and Rob and trying to kind of get in their good graces. But they betrayed him, but he realizes that there's absolutely nothing he can do but try to ingratiate himself with the rest of the tribe when he goes back. He can't go back angry. Like I said, I love how direct people from his quote-unquote alliance were with him. Michelle even told him, now you see what happens when you go behind our back. And then he tries to talk to Ben, and Ben says, "Dadgummit, Adam." And Jeremy just lets him talk himself into the ground and just nods. And then we see a very brief scene where Rob reminds Parvati that he's the one that saved her. I did love that, because he really is. If Rob had not gone to Michelle and Jeremy, then I believe Parvati was going home that day. And Adam would have gotten away with trying to ingratiate himself with the other old school people. Then we go to the call that always just seems like a vacation getaway camp. But Yul reminds us that there is a core alliance. It's him, Sophie, Nick, and Wendell. It's interesting because Tyson doesn't seem to see this. We'll talk more about it as we go along. But he thinks that those people are all outliers, which in some ways they are. But all of those outliers have come together. And then I'm not going to talk about it too much, but it was weird to me that they can see Extinction Island and see someone standing out on the edge of extinction. I don't mind that too much as long as the other tribe, Rob and Adam's tribe, can also see Extinction Island, which I doubt they can have perfectly positioned islands. Maybe they do, where they can see Extinction Island from the same angle on the opposite side. I just think it'd be weird, and is weird, if one of the tribes can see extinction and the other one can't. And then we get a great extinction segment. Like I said, it was the longest one that we've gotten. Ethan's narrative was really great, but the biggest takeaway from that whole scene, actually, to me, game-wise, was this is the first time they've introduced more than 20 coins. Sorry, that's what my grandma calls them. That they've introduced more than 20 tokens in the game. And I'd wondered if they were going to do this. This whole time we've had 20 tokens in the game, and I didn't know if they were just going to pass hands, and it was all about getting as many of the 20 as you could, or if they would introduce more coins like they did in this episode. So all 4 of the people on Extinction were able to get a token. And so we're up to 24 tokens. And I just find it interesting that that's the first time they've introduced more currency into the game. And the most interesting part of the entire episode to me was when we cut back to Sele, Rob's tribe, and he winds up talking to Parvati like, could I just go lie to his alliance and say he's trying to talk to us again? And he goes to Michelle and Jeremy and tells them that lie. And it seems like he pretty much gets away with it. What I really wanted to see was Adam's original alliance, the new schoolers, going to him, telling them what Rob said, and him trying to defend himself and say, no, I have not continued to talk game with those 2 old schoolers, and then them not believing him still because he already lied to them. And then Rob still getting away with the lie. But we didn't see that, but I do think it was a decent move on Rob's part. I don't know how consequential it will be since we are switching up tribes, but I did find that just a really excellent scene. pretty good risky gameplay on Boston Rob's part. And then I like that we get a little scene where Michelle continues to talk about her controversial win, which seems like a winner's edit kind of thing to talk about. She's been getting a lot of airtime. It's been ramping up. But I like that she talks to Rob about this, because I think that Michelle and Rob actually have two of the more debatable good wins. Rob's all considered a legend of the game, don't get me wrong, but a lot of people argue that he only won because he was with a bunch of bad game players. Michelle, on the other hand, was against someone who a lot of people believe should have won in Aubrey, and Michelle wound up winning. And so I like that we hear the two of them, two of the people that have to probably defend the fact that they won and they're winning games the most, about the fact that they feel that their wins sometimes are discredited. And then we cut to the call and see that Tyson and Sarah formed a friendship, but in my opinion, this is just to make the audience think that there's more of a chance of Tyson staying if they don't want immunity than there actually is. But it's nice to see a fun side of Sarah. She always seems so serious to me, so it's nice to see her actually loosening up some. And he takes a good approach to Tony and Sarah, because if there wasn't a swap coming next week, either one of the game changers or Kim would be the next one going out, because that 4 with Yule are so strong. So I think that Tyson is trying his best and that this is his best argument. But Sandra's still bitter that Tyson went for her during the first vote, but Tony does seem more open to the idea of getting someone like a Nick out, but we'll get to that here in a minute. And we have a huge comeback victory. The call is going to Tribal. Immunity challenge was fine. Jeff always seems to say it's the biggest comeback in history, but this definitely was a pretty big one. And we see a lot of short scenes once they get back to their beach of Tyson talking to several people, and they all seem pretty down for it. And like I said before, Tony's the only one that seems convinced, because he needs shields, and this game, this season, seems to be largely about keeping bigger threats in front of you, and Tony is one of the people that needs to try to keep bigger threats in front of him. And they argue that Nick's not helpful around camp, and he failed at the challenge. That's all fine, but it's more Tyson trying to pick off someone who he thinks is an outlier and is an easy vote out, whereas Tyson himself seems like an easy vote out to everyone else, except for Tony, who does see some credence in what Tyson is saying. And right before Tribal, it seems like Tony is doing his due diligence to try to convince other big threats like Sandra and Sarah that this is a good move. And they seem to somewhat be considering it. But again, to me, it just felt like Tyson was going home from the minute we found out they lost immunity. And Sandra's the key to making this plan actually happen, in my opinion. If Sarah and Sandra switch and then Kim is on board, then we can have 5 votes against that strong 4-person outlier alliance. And Tribal was fine. It was fun. Everyone's laughing quite a bit. There's a lot of talk about idolatry, about the fact that people look up to other people that they're playing with right now. And then we see that it's a 7-1 vote. Oddly, Nick votes for Kim, which to be honest, I wish I could tell you, but I don't fully understand it. Tyson votes for Nick, totally get that. And then it appears everyone else votes for Tyson. And Tyson actually seems blindsided. I think that he thought that he convinced everyone else to vote for Nick. And he says something as he's standing up about it being too easy, or he should have seen it coming. And he seems genuinely shocked when Jeff reveals the second Tyson vote. And he gives his token to Nick, which is odd, but it might be kind of like a hats off to him. He says that he'd rather swallow it than give it to someone. I actually thought he'd give it to someone more like Rob or Parvati, because they had the option to give it to anyone in the game that's not on extinction from either tribe. But he winds up giving it to Nick, and that's the end of our episode. Like I said, I wanted to keep this one short. There aren't a ton of takeaways from the actual episode. I did want to touch on the Sandra controversy, because it's something that's just a black mark on the Survivor fandom. It's just pathetic, and I'm just frustrated by it. But I can't wait to see what happens next episode. I'm so glad they're finally swapping up tribes. It looks like we'll probably have 3 tribes of 5, unless they do something crazy and bring someone back from Edge of Extinction. In the preview for the next episode, Michelle talks about the fact that she's going to be on an island with her ex-boyfriend. If you guys didn't know or didn't see, that definitely is Wendell. Her and Wendell dated for a few months. And so I would assume that this means that at least Michelle and Wendell will be on the same tribe. But it does seem like they're on good terms now. So she's laughing and acting like it's going to be awkward but I could see them easily, if that tribe of 5 goes to tribal council, those two teaming up with one other person and being able to stay safe through this next episode. But thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Comment below. Let me know what you think about the Sandra controversy. Well, I'm kind of tired of hearing about it, but I do like hearing people's level-headed opinions and not emotion-based and actual logical opinions about it. I'm interested to hear what you guys have to think. What do you guys hope to see or think we'll see with the tribes swapping? Let me know down below. Thanks for watching. This has been Jack with Survivorflux. Peace out.